Welcome into our CBS Sports studio for HQ Spotlight. I'm Katie Engelson. She is Amanda Guerra. And Amanda, it's been a busy few weeks in the NFL with training camps in full swing. And we have a full slate of preseason games beginning tomorrow, which means we are that much closer to the NFL season.
I know. Finally, we get a little bit more NFL action. We're going to talk about these preseason games, which teams really need those games the most before the season kicks off. So 1 month from tomorrow, the NFL kicks off on CBS for week 1. In 1 day from now, tomorrow, those preseason games getting underway. One of the teams we're going to be talking about, the Pittsburgh Steelers. A lot of drama going on there because of that guy, well, not that guy, the one you saw before him, number 8, Aaron Rodgers. Our Bryant McFadden, 2-time Super Bowl champ with the Steelers, is at training camp. And the talk of the town is now 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers. Can he, in his last dance, what we think is his last dance, take the Steelers back to the Super Bowl promised land? And also, what about some of his new receivers like DK Metcalf? Here's more from B-Mac.
Well, it's a work in progress, but I think one of DK's greatest characteristics is his attention to detail. And he's, first of all, a great human being. I mean, from the first conversation we had when I was out in Los Angeles and we were talking about meeting up and throwing together, I knew that he was a really classy dude. And I just want to see him work. Just being on the practice field with him at UCLA that day was really impressive, just to see how much he cares about it. And much like Steph Curry never leaving the court without, you know, whether it's swishing 10 free throws or making your last shot, DK didn't want to leave the field without, you know, perfect catches in a row. And I just respect the way he works. And now, you know, we're roommates. Not in the same room, but we're adjacent to each other. We share a bathroom and a shower. And he's always coming over and knocking on the door and coming in, and we have conversations about ball and what happened that day and stuff we'd like to clean up or questions that he had or stuff that he likes. And, you know, I'm not a dictator out there. I like some input, and I like seeing the game through your eyes. That's what I told him from day one. So I love hearing, you know, watching a clip and hearing what he's thinking on a play. So our chemistry is coming together on the field. Off the field, as you know, is as important or maybe more important. Because when you trust that guy and when you have that bond, there's a different level of accountability because you cannot let down your brother. And that comes from, you know, really getting the opportunity to spend this time that we have here at the Trophy.
All right, let's bring in Ryan Wilson, Tyler Sullivan here. Aaron Rodgers, I don't know if he's like going for a baby face, not having the beard. I don't know if it works that way. Kind of a new look for him. So let's talk about the Steelers and talk about the preseason. Tyler, look, I'll start with you. Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf, you have a new look to the secondary. Why does this preseason mean so much for them? And should Aaron Rodgers start any of those games?
I think he should. He indicated earlier today that he might not play in the preseason opener, but I do think it's important for him in particular to have those in-game reps, and whether that's a full quarter, a half, a series, that's up for Mike Tomlin and Aaron Rodgers to debate, but I do think it's important for him to get some live reps, and especially when we're talking about, like he was saying in that interview with BMAC, building that chemistry with DK Metcalf. One of my main concerns for Aaron Rodgers making this transition to the Pittsburgh Steelers is that I don't see a lot of former Green Bay Packers in this offense at the skill position players. In fact, there is an all but 0. And that is important because if you remember when he transitioned from the Green Bay Packers to the New York Jets, he liked to have those guys that he was familiar with, whether it was Allen Lazard, Randall Cobb, more recently, Devontae Adams. So the fact that those guys were so important to him going to the New York Jets and building that offense to whatever it was, now that you're kind of basically starting from scratch at 41 years old, building that relationship from 0 with all these players with the Pittsburgh Steelers, including DK Metcalf, to me, that is what's going to be important, building that relationship in-game just as much as off the field, like he was saying with BMAC.
Hey, Sully, good to see you. Good to see you, man. I hear what you're saying, and I actually agree with all of it. My concern is hop in the old time machine with me to 2 years ago when Aaron Rodgers played 3 snaps in the Week 1 regular season game for the Jets, and that was that. And he is 41 years old, as Amanda pointed out, so that's the other issue. But you're not wrong. The lack of chemistry has been showing up in the daily training camp reports that I lay my eyes on here. And DK Metcalf is a great addition, but they moved on from George Pickens. There is no wide receiver 2 there who has separated himself. Hopefully Roman Wilson can step into that role, last year's second-round pick, but we have yet to see that. And also, more importantly, in terms of my concerns about Aaron Rodgers being out there in August football, the offensive line is young and still sort of figuring things out. And I don't know if you and going to set Aaron Rodgers and or the offensive line up to fail in the preseason. But again, the larger point that Sully is making is an important one in that, look, the chemistry has to happen at some point. It can be in August, and fingers crossed everyone stays healthy, or it can be in the regular season when the games count. And that could be a concern in a division that's already incredibly competitive with the Ravens and the Bengals. So a lot to sort through, a lot of decisions to be made. I don't know if one series here and there in the next 2 or 3 weeks is going to make the difference for Aaron Rodgers. Then again, it'll be him one step closer to perhaps where he wants to get with that wide receiving group.
We'll stay in the AFC North. Let's go to the Browns there. And we did find out that Shedeur Sanders is going to be starting their very first preseason game. Now, some of that is because Kenny Pickett, Dylan Gabriel, they're both dealing with hamstring injuries. Joe Flacco listed as number 1 on that depth chart. Ryan, with Joe Flacco in that position, do you think, though, in these preseason games, there's any convincing Kevin Stefanski that maybe he shouldn't be the starter? And also, what are you looking for from Shedeur?
I think Kevin Stefanski knows who the starter is going to be, but there could be a lot of convincing with fans about who the starter should be, and his name probably does not rhyme with Joe Flacco. And I say that because if you went back a few years to preseason, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, their day 3 draft pick, had a fantastic start to his training camp and preseason, and I remember thinking this guy has a chance to perhaps battle for the starting job at some point in the next couple years, and things went sideways and it didn't work out, and he's since been traded. But if Shedeur comes out and balls out, you know what's going to happen, Amanda. We're going to have these conversations about where he is in the pecking order. He's currently QB4, and you talked about why he's starting this game in large part because of injuries. And I think all he needs to do is get the team out of the huddle, avoid the pre-snap penalties, and make good decisions with the football, and that'll be a good starting point. I don't think it's going to affect Kevin Stefanski's decision, but it'll certainly give the Cleveland media something to talk about for the next few weeks.
All right, let's move on to the Jags here. Let's talk about Trevor Lawrence. Look, he is expected to play some. And obviously, one of the people we're looking forward to most in the Jags is Travis Hunter. Which side of the ball is he going to be on? Tyler, I'll go to you with the Jags, why they need this preseason so much. And also, hopefully, Liam Cohen is using it to work on his Duval as well.
Yeah, that's true. That was abysmal. And I don't want to replicate it because I don't want to be the next one that screws it up. But overall, I look at the Jaguars and say there's kind of a lot of loose ends for a team that it feels like, especially on the offensive side of the ball, is budding with talent with Brian Thomas Jr., Trevor Lawrence trying to rebound off of last season when he was dealing with injuries, but also poor play. You have Travis Hunter trying to figure out what he looks like. There's just a lot of questions with this team. I think talent-wise, they should be in the conversation to win the AFC South, but it just doesn't feel like we're holding them to that standard because of a lot of things that still need to be sorted out. To me, I think one of them, of course, as you referenced, what is Travis Hunter going to look like in the preseason? How much of it is going to be on the offensive side of the ball? How much is it going to be on the defensive side of the ball? Liam Cohen kind of suggested the reason why we're seeing him a little bit more on the offensive side of the ball is because there's a little bit more to learn there for him in terms of his development, in terms of learning the play calls, in all of that. Defensively, you can kind of go out there and show your athleticism and cover. So I'm curious to see if they continue that in game. How much do we see? Are there games where he plays exclusively on the offensive side of the ball? Is there games where he plays exclusively on the defensive side of the ball? And the other thing that I'm looking at with the Jacksonville Jaguars is the backfield. Tank Bigsby was better than Travis Etienne at points last year, had a better yards per carry average. I wonder if that continues, if that battle over the course of this offseason continues into the preseason. Maybe there's more of a split carry there in the backfield for the Jaguars as well.
We did see during training camp at some point Travis Hunter going from offense to defense back and forth. So maybe we'll see it in the middle of the game. That'd be a lot of fun to watch. Ryan, you get the Vikings here. J.J. McCarthy is expected to start. If I were him, as I wear Vikings purple, I'm going to have a little PTSD because it was the preseason where he got hurt last year. But we desperately need to see him in play.
Yeah, in that preseason game, he actually looked really good, Amanda. It's just the knee injury sidelined him for the rest of the season, and they didn't need him, right? Sam Darnold played out of his mind. The defense was really good. They won 14 games. But I would say, and I feel pretty confident, and it's not even close, J.J. McCarthy is under a lot more pressure than Sam Darnold, who is now in Seattle as the starter, because can he get close to replicating what this offense looked like a year ago? And I think, we talk a lot about Kevin O'Connell and the success he has with quarterbacks, both young and old. He's going to have a real test with JJ, and not because JJ's not a good player, but if you go back to Michigan, he was not asked to do a bunch on that national championship team, in part because they didn't need him to. There were so many good players around him on both sides of the ball. He excelled on third down his last year in college, and that will certainly translate. But in first and second down, he did a lot of handing the ball off or making short throws. So I want to see what that looks like, especially with the understanding that Jordan Addison isn't going to be there for the start of the regular season. Justin Jefferson's banged up with a hamstring. T.J. Hawkinson's currently banged up. So he'll be working with a less than top-tier cast of wide receivers and tight ends. Offensive line should be pretty good. Darisaw's back. Their first-round pick is going to start at left guard. So I think those are encouraging signs. But we have to see J.J. play at a high level quickly in order to assuage the concerns that any fans might have now that Sam Darnold's gone.
Talking about teams that need the preseason the most, final team we're going to talk about here, Tyler, is the Falcons. Michael Penix Jr. taking over for Kirk Cousins late last season. He's been working with the ones and stuff like that, but how much pressure is on him in order to try to keep that job?
Yeah, there's a ton, especially when you have a guy like Kirk Cousins with his background behind him. I don't think that they would go back to Kirk Cousins, but the fact that he's still on the roster and they're comfortable with him as QB2, you never know. These seasons can always get a little funky. But for me, when I look about Michael Penix, I really go back to, I felt like he passed the eye test for me. The numbers aren't there. You look at those 3 starts to end last season, 58% completion rate, he had a passer rating of 78.6. Not exactly a first-round quarterback, franchise cornerstone type numbers, but when you actually watch those games, it did change a little bit. It felt like he was the franchise cornerstone, or at least has the potential to be that. So in the preseason, you kind of just want to see those things get maybe merge a little bit closer together, a more efficient play on the field for however long he's out there, and looking like that starting quarterback that the Falcons hope that they drafted last year in the first round.
Gents, we appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon. Hang on just a second here. We're going to talk about the NFL returning to CBS. As I said, today is August 6th, 1 month from tomorrow. The NFL returns on CBS. 2 huge games we've got coming up that day, including the Steelers and Aaron Rodgers going up against his former team in the Jets. Also Lions and Packers. We're counting down the days.